Known as a charismatic leader, visionary, and entrepreneur, Bishop T.D. Jakes serves as a senior pastor of the Potter's House, a global humanitarian organization. His mission is to extend a hand of help to the needy, a heart of compassion to the hurting, and bring a message of empowerment to the disenfranchised. Bishop Jakes' love for people goes beyond the church through ministries including MegaCare, a local national and international outreach organization, as well as the Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative, an organization to rehabilitate formerly incarcerated individuals. His messages inspire and encourage leaders to excel on their own level. In addition to pastoring to 30,000 church members, Bishop Jakes became the first clergyman to host a national talk show for a mainstream audience. He also heads an award-winning music label, is a New York Times best-selling author, and a filmmaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bishop T.D. Jakes.
We are thrilled to have this next gentleman with us. I did an interview with him a couple of times, and one of the ones we talked about was instinct. And I said to Bishop Jakes, I said, your instinct took you from West Virginia to Houston, didn't it? And he said, yes. And that's where his life really, truly changed. And so we are very thrilled, ladies and gentlemen, now joining us live, not from Houston, but from Dallas. Please welcome the one and only Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Yes!
Welcome, Bishop. And joining him,
Yes!
our chairman,
Yes!
John Hope Bryant.
Bishop!
Hello. How are you?
Well, no, hold on. I just want everybody to hear that voice one more time. So,
Hello.
The brother just makes smart sexy.
You're kind.
Oh, I love you, man. And I love our friendship and our brotherhood. And I love your soul. This is personally one of my most favorite interviews because he's going to bring you so much in a short period of time that will check many boxes in and for your life. You know him as Bishop. He's known worldwide. He's known by all races of people. But he really is as close as we get to a black bishop, a black pope, respectfully said, for black America in the world. His legend is global. But people then tend to put him in a glass box and then don't let him escape from that narrative and don't understand he's a whole and rich and well-rounded person who also has pain, also has challenges, also has a story. My favorite conversations with Bishop are conversations at midnight at 1 a.m, where we're both off duty and just talking about life. You may not know that he was born in Charleston, I believe it's Charleston, West Virginia. I think that's right.
That's right.
Where my wife was born, Shatra. She's like, woo woo. And that's one of the connections. You also have a connection with Ambassador Young. I forget the details, but it's the same small town where Jean Charles Young was born. Is that right?
Yes.
So you can tell
my mother was born where his wife was born in Marion, Alabama.
So that's where Ambassador met the first love of his life. So Bishop, let's first start by unpacking you. Not Bishop T.D. Jakes, but the man who struggled and challenged his way and dreamed his way as a dreamer with a shovel in his hand, as Dr. Dorothy Height would tell us, to get to Dallas. And then I want to pivot. I'm going to tell you, give me advance notice. I'm going to pivot to the part of your life that folks don't know so well, which is the part of building T.D. Jakes Enterprises and the entrepreneur T.D. Jakes and what you're doing now, which I'm so excited about. But first, let's go behind the curtain of your soul.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and hello to everybody. I'm delighted to have this opportunity for the next few minutes to share with you just brief excerpts out of my life and some of my thoughts about where I think we as a people need to be moving forward. I grew up on a dirt road in the hills of West Virginia in a poor house, in a 2-bedroom house with 3 kids, and very, very deplorable situation, but I didn't know it was deplorable because it was all all I had experienced, and all I was familiar with, and that did not change until my father became more entrepreneurial, and my mother started back to teaching school once the kids got up to a certain age where she could afford to leave us and go to work, and then our whole lives began to move forward after that manner. Growing up in the house with an entrepreneur and a school teacher reflects in the way that I think today. And I think it has a lot to do with me being an orator on one hand and a business person on the other hand. By the way, I have been bivocational almost all of my life. I have never been purely a minister, not in West Virginia. TD Jakes Enterprises is older than the Potter's House, established in Dallas. Very few people know that.
Wow.
I've always been entrepreneurial all of my life, whether I worked for Union Carbide and pastored on the side. I guess because I was raised by a father who didn't think in terms of a job. He thought in terms of being entrepreneurial. He thought in terms of ownership. My mother thought in terms of ownership. She owned lots of real estate in Charleston. The street was named after her. They paved it. She bought all the houses on the street, collected rent, even when she had Alzheimer's and couldn't remember that she owned them anymore. So that kind of influence makes up the recipe of the way in which I think. And I think all of us are in some way a product of how we were raised.
Yeah, yeah. And you clearly, as we talk, a lot of your posse, your crew, you brought with you from that small town. Some of you have been gone on to glory in this pandemic period. And I remember how much that touched your heart and how you've worked hard to honor them by doing more. Again, that personal, intimate side of your soul. Rainbows after storms. So how do you think you've done with the original vision? I think I know what the answer is thus far. And where do we go from here?
I think let me talk a little bit about what we have done, because I think a lot of people don't realize all they see is the preaching. That's all that we put on TV.
Yep.
Is the preaching. And so they define you totally by the preaching.
Yep.
But TD Jakes Enterprises, as the lead-in said, has done quite a bit of films. We're getting ready to do 2 more films with Lifetime. We're doing films with other companies, and we're getting ready to announce a new film that I can't announce right now that I'm very excited about. All of that has been going on. What they don't realize is our Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative has taken former inmates, has the lowest rate of recidivism of any entity of its kind. 30,000 inmates have gone through our program. It's a 2-year program. We do graduation services for them after we teach them life skills, get them GEDs, have anger management classes, whatever we need to have to help them to assimilate back into society more effectively. 5 prisons, now 7 prisons have been shut down in Texas, in part as a result of the low rates of recidivism. We're really working hard to make a change where it really, really matters and help people to be upwardly mobile. I've also started to build a coalition of CEOs who are interested in offering entry-level positions to people in spite of their incarceration. And I think that's very important. You can't tell people not to go back to crime. If you can't get an apartment, nobody will rent to you. Nobody will let you buy a house, and nobody will hire you. You have nowhere else to go. So hats off to the major corporations who have opened their eyes and ears to reentry level positions, entry level positions, creating those opportunities. And I have tried to leverage my platform to get meetings that perhaps not everybody could get with people that not everybody could get them with, to be a voice for people who do not have a voice so that we can make a change in that regard. I've since started TD Jakes Real Estate Ventures, which is designed to use some of these opportunity zones to create upward mobility without creating gentrification. We don't want people coming in, buying up our neighborhoods and pushing us further and further out. So these are mixed income housing experiences in various parts of the country that I own up under a for-profit initiative that we're developing with live, work, and play spaces, mixed income, closing food deserts, putting in grocery stores, creating retail, creating jobs in those communities for underserved communities so that we'll have a fighting chance at a better tomorrow. We're raising capital stacks and taking advantage of those opportunities across the country to help those communities to assimilate and to progress and to attain upward mobility so that they can have a chance at a great life. Some of that comes from the fact that as a pastor, when I call people to prayer, most people are asking God for what they call a miracle is rent, it's housing, it's food equity, it's health, it's things that are not necessarily miracles. I mean, call God when you want to part the Red Sea. When you need a job, shouldn't be a miracle. A house shouldn't be a miracle. A car shouldn't be a miracle. I want to change our miracle list so that we begin to think a little differently and attain a little differently.
And
those have been the major things that we've been focused on. Our foundation has got STEM programs we just sponsored, we partnered with Frito-Lay in sponsoring all of the DISD school systems, which are mostly in underserved areas, to have an opportunity to go see Hamilton. We paid for their tickets to have an experience that would connect them with STEAM programs, that's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, not just the production itself, but how it is produced, the technology behind how it is produced, so that we can get our children inspired, not only to be on stage, but to become a stage, to own films, to produce products, to learn how to code, to learn how to do graphic arts design so that they will be marketable for the future. We're really trying to get our children ready for tomorrow. And by the way, John, we did a summer camp, STEAM program summer camp, where we expected 500 kids. We got 5,000 kids enrolled in this STEAM program. There is a hunger in minority communities to be included in a visionary program if they can see themselves, if they can see representations of themselves. If you can't see it, you can't be it.
That's right. That's right. And by the way, he means science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM. So I want to say a couple things about Bishop that you should be feeling, but I want to make clear. He's a very humble man. He's very smart, extremely smart. In fact, I think he's one of the top 5 black business people I've ever met in my life. Maybe the top 10 business people, period. It's separate from his ecumenical mission. And when the first time, and part of being smart is being curious. I asked Quincy Jones, how'd you get so smart? He said, I'm just nosy as hell. I want to know everything about everything. The first time I had a substantive conversation with Bishop, we've seen each other, whatever. Shatra and I were chilling late one night, and he calls. Can I have a minute? Bishop T.D. Jakes, it's like the president calling. United States, sure, whatever you want. And he asked me a question. He wanted advice. Let this sink in now. Think about everybody you know walking around with sunglasses on at night, acting like they're more than they are, acting like they know more than they know, won't ask a question, arrogant, pompous, the smartest Janice Brian Halroy, the second largest black business in America, $3 billion in revenue, sitting right here in the front row, female black business, always asking questions. Just this morning asked me a question. Can't she sit at my table? But she's always asking questions. But Bishop is always asking questions. He's curious. He wants to know everything. And to tell you something else, his nonprofit, his ecumenical piece, completely separate, firewalls. Listen to me now, firewalls from his for-profit. Because he realized when you're black, you're born on probation. You got to be twice as smart, twice as intelligent, get up twice as early, stay up twice as late, work twice as hard, and be twice as honest. And he is that role model. Listen to me now. Read his books, follow him. He's that role. Nobody's perfect, but he's perfect in his imperfection. He really is what you see. A good, honest, authentic, smart, passionate person. Bishop, tell us what you're doing here in Atlanta in this big vision you have here, and how does this all fold in?
We're in the final stages of closing. We've presented our plans. We expect them to be accepted within the next 24 hours. We're getting 95 acres of what was Fort Mack, was originally a Confederate Army base, where Tyler Perry Studios is on one side. We're going to be on the other side with mixed income housing, all the things I talked about, grocery stores, retail stores, live, work places for kids to play, interact with each other, as well as hotels and upward mobility, yet creating opportunities for workforce housing. One of the great problems we have in most of our cities is that most of the people who work in the city can't afford to live in the city they work in. We want to solve some of those problems by creating an opportunity for the nurse, for the custodian, for the police officer to be able to afford to live in the city that they're protecting.
Yeah.
That has changed now. The prices have become so exorbitant that the average person can't afford to live anywhere near where they're going to work. So their gas bills are going up, their travel bills are going up, their transportation is becoming more expensive. We're trying to solve some of those problems and creating upward mobility. We got 95 acres of land that we have designed as one of our, what we're calling Bishop's Village. There are various communities that we're going to do there and in other parts of the United States. Because I'm at the state now in my life that I want to see the word made flesh. I don't want to preach a sermon. I want to see one.
Did you hear that? I don't want to just preach a sermon. I want to see one.
Yeah, it's about word being made flesh. A lot of times we get the most kudos because we make the most noise, but making noise isn't making change.
Woo!
You have to understand the difference. You can impress a crowd making noise, but you can change the world making change. And making change isn't always done in big rooms. It's done in small rooms. It's done in meetings. It's done in boardrooms. It's done behind closed doors. It's not the big opulent, I'm out in the middle of the street yelling at everybody. Those are not the things that make change. It does draw attention, and we do need attention drawn to issues. I'm not minimizing the importance of that. But once we've drawn attention to the issue, the change is made in small rooms. And I want a seat at the table in the small room where the changes are going to be made, where the monies are going to be allocated, where the grants are going to be released, where the doors are going to be opened, so that we can have a legacy. I'm not worried about me. I'm almost 65 years old. I'm worried about my grandchildren. Yeah. I'm worried about my grandchildren having a world that they can live in and breathe air and have water and own a house and drive a car and have the kind of life or better than their white counterparts.
So I'm hearing a couple things. I'm hearing a movement from not just civil rights in the streets, but what we call silver rights in the business suites.
Absolutely. Civil rights and also intellectual rights. I think it's important that we think multidimensionally. I teach at our church, when they say shake your money maker, shake your head, because it's what's going on right here that's going to make the difference in your life.
Mindset.
Mindset is everything. Multidimensional mindsets, not allowing yourself to be influenced by monodimensional thinkers who put you in a category and say, for example, Denzel Washington is an actor. Well, that's true, but he's also a producer. He is also an owner. He's also a business person. He's also a director. He's also a thinker. To say Oprah Winfrey is a talk show host, but she also owns OWN and does all sorts of enterprises and involved in all sorts of investments and other types of business. T.D. Jakes is a preacher. Yes, that's true, but I also own several for-profit companies, produced films, have written 12 New York Times bestsellers, done a lot of other things other than that. The point I'm making to you is, do not allow people to lock you down by how they define you and put a period where God put a comma.
as Reverend Murray would say, it's not what people call you, it's what you answer to that's important, and never ever answer out of your name. And then I added, to argue with a fool proves there are two. As we wrap here, as we come tighten this up, Bishop, you're one of the few people in this program who can give permission. I don't think people have permission to dream. They think this narrow monolithic view that you got to do this, but you can't do this. Can you do well and do good at the same time? Can you be a pastor and also respectfully, done properly, segregated, an entrepreneur? Can we pursue wealth appropriately? Because as I understand the Bible, it's not money that's bad, it's the love of money that's bad. I'm gonna wrap this up with a question. I'll tie this with a question I asked you. I called you the other day, and as you know, you're the only person I called to ask for advice on this one thing, this one decision I had to make. Because I thought that you were the most well-equipped person to give me counsel. It was a business decision I needed to make. Not a spiritual one, a business decision. And you gave me brilliant advice. If you're gonna give this audience advice, what should you be focusing on in the next 5 or 10 years? What things you should be trying to do to advance your life as we reset? Let's go.
Part of the advice is in the question itself. I think that we are so focused on the present that we're not thinking about the future. I think you need at least a 10-year strategy. I think you need to put your efforts into building for a world we haven't seen yet.
Ooh.
If you're driving a Volkswagen, you can wait till you get to the corner to turn. But if you're driving an 18-wheeler, you have to plan the turn and start shifting before you get to the corner. The world is coming to a corner, and if we don't shift right now, economically, academically, intellectually, and even spiritually, we won't be ready to make the turn. So we will watch once again the generation make a turn that we stand in the stands and clap for, but we never get in the field and play the game.
Man, I wish you were here. I'd kiss you on the forehead and give you a hug.
Right there, buddy.
People also don't know you have a sense of humor. Is there anything as we wrap? I'm so excited to have you here, man. Isn't he fantastic? Is there any drop the mic that you want to leave? Drop the mic, thought, message, memory?
To the CEOs, to the corporate leaders, we need to work together. We need a partnership, not just between you and elected officials, but between elected officials, spiritual leaders, CEOs, community leaders. We're dealing with the same people. It is not just about profit, it is about purpose.
Yes.
If you make all the money in the world, but the environment around you crumbles, what good will the money do? So it is possible to do purpose and still do profit. It is possible to do good and still do well. The two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. And the final petition I want to make on behalf of my foundation to the CEOs, I'm hearing too many CEOs saying that they cannot find intelligent, articulate, educated Black people to assume corporate level positions of management and executive level positions. Let me help you. That's what our foundation does. They're in my choir. They're on my usher board. They do exist. They're all around you. They're everywhere. They come in every color. Just because they're not in your bubble doesn't mean they're not in your world. And our foundation is designed to create pathways between what you need to fulfill your obligation for diversity, inclusion, and equity. Diversity, it might mean meeting a quota. It's like inviting me to dance. But as Sil often says, when you have inclusion is going beyond inviting me to the dance and bringing me out on the floor. We want to be included. Some of the mistakes and the costly mistakes that are being made in corporate America are being made because you don't have diversity in the boardrooms where the decisions are made. And you think they don't exist because they're not on the golf course with you, but they do exist. They are in the world. And the commitment of TD Jakes Foundation is to be a bridge between supply and demand so that we can have a more equitable world, a more just society, and a more vibrant economy.
By the way, we're closed. We're over time. We're over time. But I just felt that this deserved a couple more minutes. I hope you don't mind.
No.
And you should all know that the person that both Bishop Jakes and I go to for advice and counsel is Ambassador Andrew Young. So everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs somebody. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for counsel. Don't be afraid to lend your hand and extend your hand to lift somebody up even as you rise. Lift somebody up even as you rise. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in saying thank you to my brother from another mother, Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Thank you, everybody.
Standing ovation, T.D.